You're listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. On this episode, actor David Howard Thornton, the man of many voices, dives into the deep shadows as Art the Clown in Terrifier and its highly anticipated horror screen sequel. Without due haste, we're going to be introducing today to our audience actor, voice magnificence of all means and matter, David Howard Thornton. And then after I say that, I always go like this because it's sort of like the fear of genre actors who like take on these roles.
Yeah. Oh, you never know. You never know. There's some interesting characters out there for sure.
Art the Clown and Terrifier. I mean, it's to say that it's a cult success is almost like putting it in a box because when the movie came out and it just boom.
We did not expect that at all.
I'd love to know like what the process was because I mean it's like were you did was it a process that did they come to you with the process or did you go in for it to cast to read for Art the Clown? How was it when the first time that you got that script in your hand?
Yeah, I found out about the audition just through Actors Access of all things because I was in a weird like limbo state because I had just come back from my fifth and final tour of How the Grinch Stole Christmas the musical.
Mm.
And I decided to just take like about 4 months of my life off just to focus on auditioning. I was like, you know what? I don't want to wait tables. I just really want to focus on doing something with my career right now. So I did that. And I had been up for like 4 or 5 different national Broadway tours of different things. And they had all fallen through at the last minute for some reason or another. Like one of them literally came down to a flip of the coin. It's like they were it was like it was the tour of Peter and the Starcatcher,
Oh
and
wow.
Roger Rees, who was directing it, which was shortly before he passed away too. And it was just like, oh man, that would have been awesome to work with him. But they just couldn't decide between me and another actor, so they flipped a coin. And I thought it came up the wrong way for me, but I discovered that if it had gone the other way, or if I had gotten any of those other tours, I would not have either been able to audition for Terrifier, or I would have been on the road when it was filming, so I wouldn't have been able to film it. So it worked out the right way. The universe has this weird way of doing these things, and that's
Yeah.
I just found that audition because they were looking for a tall, skinny guy with experience with doing physical comedy. And I was familiar with the role too because I had seen the original movie All Hallows Eve, so I was like, oh, he's a great character. I would love it because I've always wanted to play like a silent character like that because I grew up watching the great comedians, the great silent
Hmm.
comedians especially, and especially like Keaton, Chaplin, all those guys, but also Mr. Bean. My aunt when I was a teenager gifted me a box set of all the Mr. Bean videos, and I would devour those. I would watch them over and over and over and over because I was like, I love that style of comedy. I think it's
Yeah.
so smart and clever because you're not relying on words. Everything has to go with physicality, and it's one of the wonderful things about it too. It's not just relegated to like one language. It crosses all boundaries. It's a worldwide thing, so people can watch it in different countries and understand exactly what's going on. And that's what I like about those type of characters. And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
happened, and I got this role.
Yeah. Directed by Damien Leone, Terrifier, which is a horror movie, and
Mhm.
it's certainly the character of Art the Clown. Um, set him up a little bit because he steals the scene. He's like like these. It's almost like the genre has evolved to another level where the monster is something that you can't take your eyes you can't take your eyes off of that monster, but Art has a particular look. Art the Clown has a very particular look. Give us a little background about Art the Clown, but in the context of Terrifier, because
Yeah.
um, there's something. that's in the works in the sequel, which we
Right, right. Is it? Yeah, there's some because like we don't really explain the character at all. It's just like you only can only surmise what he's about from just what you see on screen. There's like the pizza parlor scene that's in the film. I think it's the best way to describe the character because you see everything you need to know about the character in that scene alone. You see that
mm,
he's playful,
yeah.
and you see he's got that mischievous side, but also you see that just sadistic, creepy viciousness that he has too, and he can turn it on the dime, which I love about him. But it's like I kind of look at like art as like he's a amalgamation of all the horror villains that came before him. There's little bits
Mm.
and pieces of everybody, and he's like a super hybrid of all those guys. He takes all their best qualities and puts them together for himself. And that's my been my approach for the characters. Like yeah, just like he's the ultimate horror fanboy slash love letter to the genre.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the machinations of an on-screen of what goes on behind the scenes of a horror film. My all-time favorite horror movie is of course Alien,
Oh God, yes.
which
I love the shirt,
Ridley
by the way.
Scott. Thank you very much. Where it's because it's the horror theme,
Hmm.
and of course John Carpenter's Halloween, the first one, which
Oh God, yes.
is completely bloodless. There's no blood
No.
in that movie, and yet those the and they're very diverse kinds of horror movies. But John Carpenter's Michael Myers, The Shape,
Hmm.
it struck such a chord with the genre, and it really just made film audiences, really interested in that
Yeah.
horror villain. Cut to Art the Clown, who's sort of like the torchbearer for that today.
Yeah.
um did you and Damien work together to sort of like develop his characteristics, or is that something that you really got from the page, or something that you really brought to the character?
It's a lot of different things. I mean, first of all, because I'm not the first actor to play him, so it was Micah Gianelli that played him in All Hallows Eve. And so, he set a good foundation for me. It's like all the guys that played Jason before Kane Hodder played Jason.
Right.
He built upon what and he added his own thing to it. So that's what I did. But it's also Damien and I have collaborated a lot together too. Because like my first day in the makeup chair, I I'm one of those actors where I like to do my research. And so I was like, tell me everything you can about this guy. What makes him tick? What is his origin? What is this blah blah? Why does he do what he does? Blah. And Damien's like, yeah, I haven't really thought about all of that. So yeah, let's just come up with all this together. And like, it sounds good. So that's what we did. And so we were kind of developing the character the whole entire time we were doing Terrifier.
Yeah. And I guess the character started taking shape, of course, as the makeup application came on.
Hmm.
You've talked about it at conventions and with your fans. The application of the makeup is extremely intricate. What was that process like? Did you, start getting into the role as the makeup was coming on?
That's basically how I am. I mean, I've been like that even before Terrifier because I grew up doing a lot of children's theater back home in
What?
Alabama. Yeah, I know. A lot of children's theater, and I'd always play the characters that had crazy makeup jobs, and that was always my thing. It's like I knew the character before, but like as soon as I put on the makeup, I would go and sit in front of a mirror for about 30 minutes and make faces and experiment because I wanted to see how everything would read to an audience, and that's really when a character would fully come, you know, it, I can't think all of a sudden, but that's when the character would finally complete itself, I guess you could say. And
Yeah.
that's how it was for art for me. It's like as soon as I went in for my makeup test and put on that makeup for the first time, was in the costume, it just all kind of just boom came together. And so I'm not one of those actors because I get this question sometimes like, oh, are you like this all the time on set? Or do you stay in character and all that? I'm like, oh God, no. I can just turn it on and turn it off. It's just like it's probably a little bit disarming for my co-stars at times, because I'll be like stab, 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 violent, 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 violent. They're like, cut. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? I just want to make sure. Are you okay? And here I am covered in blood, and or I'll just be sitting there joking around with them right before they say, okay, rolling, and then I just put on the angry face, and they're like, oh God.
I've certainly heard that on horror film sets, because it can get, that whole building up to that anxiety and that fear, it can get very playful, and it is sort of like, there's so much special effects and stuff. Is there sort of like a wide-eyed kind of like playfulness, even though of course, you're trying to scare the pants off of each other?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I'm like, I even do that to my co-stars. I like to, sometimes just creep up on them and scare them. I was doing that a lot to our female lead in part 2, Lauren Lavera, because she actually has a fear of clowns.
Oh, this poor girl.
She would be in some just conversation with someone, and I would just silently stand behind her, and I would sometimes wait for minutes just sitting there behind her making a face, so when she turned around I'd be right in her face, and I'm just like
Oh no.
oh, I love doing that to people. This is there was a lot of pranks going on set, but at the same time, it's like if we're having a very serious scene and they have, it's like I know each actor has their own process, so if they need that time to really get in character and get into the moment, I'm like, okay, yeah, you can do what you need to do. I'll do what you need from me to get you there too. So
Of course, Terrifier has several kills that are classic. There's one particular one that I had to watch like this after hearing all about it. I had
yeah,
actually, yeah, and certainly like when, because you've gone to a lot of horror film conventions and spoken with fans. It is it do people come up to you and say like that's one of their all-time favorite kills in horror movies?
we get that a lot from people. It's and I think that's what people have really appreciated about this film, and I think that's why it's registered with so many people, is because we're not afraid to show that kind of stuff,
Mm,
because that happens a lot now. There's so much censoring that goes on in so
yeah,
many of the mainstream horror films. I feel like they water a lot of them down now because they're more concerned about making them more PG-13 rated than rated R anymore, because they're more concerned about putting butts in seats. They don't understand, like, when we were growing up, yeah, they were rated R, and you just got your older brother or sister or someone else, or you theater hopped, and you still found a way to see the movie even
yeah,
in the theater.
yeah,
It's
exactly, yeah.
so that I think that's why people appreciate it. And I will definitely say for part 2, we are not pulling back at all.
So what are your plans tomorrow?
Meg and Melanie's throwing a Halloween party. You think that guy's still out there?
What's up with you and this clown all of a sudden? You're like obsessed.
They never found his body. What if he decides to come back here?
I wouldn't worry about it. On the off chance that he is still alive, I'm sure he's gone far away from here.
It's like I just filmed a few weeks ago the final kill scene in the that we had to film. It's the biggest one in the film, I think. And Damien was there editing it a few days ago, and he sends me a text. He's like, Dave, man, I am getting a little bit lightheaded editing this right now. I'm like, you
Wow.
are? Really? The guy that created this and the guy that has been watching horror films since he was like 2 years old is getting lightheaded editing this? That's a good sign.
You've been listening to Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again to our friend David Howard Thornton for stopping by. Stay tuned as we follow the lead up to Terrifier 2.